Good afternoon. My name is Kateryna Odarchenko. Together we with SAC Group Political Management Company will look to example of German elections and of elections in one land in Germany. So for American audiences it will be understandable like state elections, and for people who in Europe, this example will be interesting because this land, this part of Germany, is very important to understand general trend. And of course, as political manager, I will show to you some archetypes and some examples of which not very typical for Germany, but maybe will be interesting for you in those examples. So here you can see that this land tag or state, it's a pretty popular state because there was big production, also big production of automotive systems, of cars, so it's big like car making region, if you want, industrial region. And also you can read here in the news that far right political force ADF have very good results there, and it's kind of understandable, and we discussed in previous lectures that we have the same effect here in United States when people feel economy problems, right, and they go with these economy problems and vote for people who give pretty easy answer in their messaging for economy problems. And today I will not concentrate on ADF. So ADF, it's political party who in Germany said that, look, we need like new industrial movement, we need cheap gas from Russia, so that's why we want, to trade with Russia, and we want to make Germany, great industrial hub again. And that's why also very, 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 very understandable why they get such support in this land. And generally the same we see in a lot of lands in Germany, and we see also that some far-right political parties became also a voice and far-right politician in the European Parliament, but it's discussion on other, our YouTube streaming. But here let's look, and I think that it's interesting to look for winner of these elections, and he not far right. He is not German, and it's interesting, because with all this anti-migrant understanding, Cem Özdemir, like he is a son of migrant parents, generally from Turkey. And also what is interesting that he put this as a part of his affiliation and of his archetype, and it's pretty new. And I think that this video can be interesting also for you, because in United States and in a lot of democratic states in United States, it's the same trend that people with like migrant experience can be pretty effective in public policy, and they became pretty good candidates. I think it's new trend in like political imaging and political management. And here also interesting example that he was elected from Alliance 90 and the Green List, but he not accent a lot for his party affiliation. So he mostly like said about his journey, about the journey of his parents, and so on and so forth. And as you see, also in his political image, he did pretty standard imaging of, wise men which popular in Germany. You can see the same with Merz. Generally, you saw the same like archetype of Aetna of Angela Merkel, but completely one more time, it's interesting that party affiliation became not so important in Germany, and before party affiliation was the most important in Germany and of course in European Union generally. And Green Party wasn't the most popular party in European Union. So that's why I think that it's a pretty interesting example of winning of candidate here, like a little bit more of his participation with Green Party. And it's interesting example of a person who have not native parents or migrant parents, became very popular even in the most like conservative places. And we saw pretty the same in some pretty conservative states in the United States. So I guess that it's interesting. Also on second place, we saw a candidate from Christian Democratic Union. So if you remember, it's one of the biggest political party in United States. It's one of the biggest political group in European Parliament. Here, generally, nothing to say. So he have completely different strategy, and he generally associate him a lot with his political group, and of course with potential of his political group. Not only in this land, but also in the Bundestag, in the German Parliament, and in European Parliament generally. So I hope that this example was interesting for you, and this example also was interesting for you because it's example of story of not native candidate, and I'm as political manager saw a lot of worries from clients who have pretty not typical names for their states here in the United States, or maybe also not a pretty typical background for their country, and they kind of afraid to go to big policy, but all these examples, and I can show you much more examples, much more examples in United States, that it's not a problem. And you can look here in United States also for members of Congress who was not born in United States, and it wasn't a problem to be elected to the Congress, like Congresswoman Sparks, and she originally from Ukraine, but she re-elect a lot of times from Indiana, which is pretty conservative American state, from and also here Cem Özdemir, good example of winning the elections in industrial state, not without problems, but not from the mainstream political party, and in pretty tough conditions. So I hope that this example was interesting for you, and if you're interested in my analysis of other examples, please feel free to contact. And of course I can't speak about direct case studies of our clients, but we can speak about general interesting examples from public policy, from elections, from European elections. And on our channel SSC group you can find also a lot of examples of elections from Latin America and Africa, which our partners also organized there. Thank you for your attention. Bye bye.